Here we go. Parshas Yisro. But before I begin Parshas Yisro, there's a story I'm going to share with you, just to give you perspective. The head of the yeshiva in Far Rockaway, it's called the Yeshiva Far Rockaway, Derech Esan, is Rabbi Yechiel Per. Rabbi Per, in the late 1950s, married Shani Nekritz. I know the Nekritz family, I know the Per family. Shani Nekritz is the granddaughter of Rabbi Avrom Yafin. Rabbi Avrom Yafin was the Rosh Yeshiva of Nevardik. Now you have to understand, in Europe there were many big yeshivas. One of the large yeshivas in Europe was the Nevardik Yeshiva. My father learned in Nevardik Yeshiva. My father was a student in the Nevardik Yeshiva in a town called Pinsk. Pinsk was a town in Poland. My father learned there. He went there when he was 12 or 13. He was bar mitzvah there. He never went back home. When the war broke out, he hadn't seen his parents for already 6-7 years. And his parents, they all died in Auschwitz. And he made his way across Russia. And he made it to China, to Shanghai. Where Shmuel Weintraub was the Rosh Yeshiva in Pinsk. Now it's interesting, before I get to the story, when I was in Israel this trip, I went to Yad Vashem. The day that I wanted to go to Yad Vashem, Mike Pence was there, so Yad Vashem was closed. But I knew that he was going to Yad Vashem, so I called in advance, and they told me it was going to be closed that day. They closed the whole Yad Vashem, so I went on a Thursday instead of on a Tuesday. When I finished going through Yad Vashem, I went into their archives. They have a section of survivors, records, and they have computers. And I typed in my father's name, my last name, and came up 462 people with the same last name. For my last name, Bryks. Holocaust, right. And then I recognized the cities. So my father was born in a city called Shabrashim. When I was in Poland, I've gone through Poland twice already, I went to Shabrashim. I went to their records, I went to their cemetery. The cemetery doesn't exist. There was one grave I found. I went to where he lived, the house, the street, and I went to the community center, which was the shul. And in the community center, which had a bunch of artwork, on top it said, Shavisi Hashem Lenegdi Talmud. You could see where the Aron Kodesh was. Of course, they didn't know what that meant. It was just Hebrew writing. We won't even talk about the fact that, in Poland today, there's a law that if you say Polish was responsible for the Holocaust, or they participated, you could go to jail. We won't even go into that category, that discussion. But I was able to see a whole bunch of people in Shabrashim, last name Bryks. So I was able to recognize my grandfather, because he has my name, Ephraim Baruch, my grandmother, Sheinel Rachel. Then I was able to recognize my father's sisters, because my sisters were named after them. I have a sister, Miriam Razel. My father had two sisters, one Miriam, one Razel. I had a sister, Chani. He had a sister, Chani. Then I was able to recognize his brothers' names. These were uncles. I never met these people. But they were born in Shabrashim, and they got married in Shabrashim. And then I could see their children, because it recorded these people plus their children. And it came out that many of my children had their names. I have a Yehuda, there was a Yehuda there, I have a Chaim, I have a Yaakov. So without knowing it, my wife and I gave names to our children that were really relatives, my father's nephews and nieces, that we never even met, we never even knew. So I was able to draw an idea of the family that all died in Auschwitz. Then they had refugee reports, and they had my father's name in Shabrashim. Well, that was true, he was born there. Then they had his name listed as a refugee in Pinsk. Well, that made sense because he was in Pinsk. Then they had his name listed as a refugee in Radin. Well, I knew that because my father went to the Chofetz Chaim in Radin. So when he traveled there, they must have had him on one of the entry visas. Then they had him in Brisk. Well, I knew that because he had smicha from Simcha Zelig of Brisk. So I was able, by the reports, see my father's name in different ways. I was able to map how he traveled when the Holocaust started through Poland, through Lithuania, all the way across Russia to Shanghai. Because they had records from all the different, so a lot of them were duplicate records. But we sat there, nobody was in this room. It was as people came in to look at the computers, they spent 5 minutes. We were there for an hour, and eventually, the Yad Vashem people gave me their website access. So they gave me, so now I'm back in America. It's a museum, Yad Vashem is a museum, but I was able to use their website access here. Now I'm able to go into the website access, and I'm able to go into and research all the different places. So I'm spending, a bunch of time just reconstructing the whole family tree based on the Yad Vashem reports. Now, I had submitted reports. So when they called up files, my name was in there as submitting reports. So since I took the time to submit, it meant something to them. It meant that I was more than just an interested bystander. I participated. So now I have access. So it's very, very interesting, all the records that are there. Anyway, Rabbi Avraham Yaffe was a big Rosh Yeshiva. He moved to America. And he gets a phone call from a rabbi in the Bronx. And the rabbi in the Bronx says, Rabbi Yaffe, next week I have a wedding in my synagogue. I really would like you to attend. Okay. Rabbi Yaffe says, who's getting married? Here's the name of the Chatan, the Kala. He doesn't know them. Doesn't know their families. What's your name? He asked the rabbi. The rabbi says his name, doesn't know them. So he doesn't understand. He says, I don't know anybody. I don't know the bride, the groom, the rabbi. I don't know. But why do you want me? No, it's very important that you should be there. Okay. In those days, if you invited a Rosh Yeshiva to your wedding, you arranged for transportation. Okay, you arranged a car to pick him up. No car was arranged. He ended up taking a subway and then a bus. It took him an hour and a half to 2 hours to get there. He gets there to the wedding, doesn't know anybody, introduces himself to the rabbi. The rabbi says, oh, I'm so happy you're here. Sit down. The chuppah, they don't call him up for any honors. Normally you would call him up to be Masada Kiddushin, or to read the Ketubah, or get a bracha, one of the Sheva brachos. So afterwards, his wife says, I don't get it, he says. We slept for 2 hours to get here. We don't know anybody. He wanted you to come, but for what? He didn't even call you up. He didn't even mention your name. He didn't even announce that you were present. And Rabbi Avraham Yaffe was a very choshev Rosh Yeshiva. He was a very important man. Like, it was such a slap in the face. Anyway, they left. They left the wedding, they left. Years later, when Rabbi Per got married to Shani Nekritz, and Rabbi Avraham Yaffe was at the chuppah, this Rabbi Yaffe, invited to the wedding. So this rabbi from the Bronx, who he hadn't seen for 15 years or 20 years, came to this wedding, and Rabbi Yaffe said, you have to call him up for a bracha, gave him a bracha. So his kids came over to him and said, Zaidi, I don't understand, he says. Who is this guy? He's not related to any of us. We never heard of him. The room is filled with Rosh Yeshivas. There are so many more important people to call. Why are you calling him up? He wouldn't give an answer. When he passed away, they figured out that Rabbi Yaffe was so angry at this guy, he couldn't get it out of his system. And he didn't want to be angry at another Jew. So the only thing he could do was invite the guy back, give him a kavod, and show him the right way to conduct himself. That was the Navardic approach. You can't just ignore the problem, you have to deal with the problem. He didn't know how to get it out of his system. So it's just an amazing story of the inner strength this Avraham Yaffe had. Rabbi Yaffe, as a Rosh Yeshiva, understood that sometimes you cannot be angry at another Jew. And the only way to get rid of the anger is to go to the other extreme. He didn't give me an honor, I'm going to give him an honor. It's an amazing thing.
And he didn't find out why he invited him?
Never found out what, where, how. It's just interesting. Now, we have to understand that, many times I go to events in the Bukharan community, a bris. So they have no clue. The father doesn't even know all the honors that have to go out. There's an honor to put the baby on this kisei v'elio, to take him off the kisei v'elio, to hold the baby when the first bracha is said, to hold the baby when the giving of the name, to give the name. And many times in the crowd there are Rabbonim from the Bukhari community, and they don't get called up. That means there's no organization. When someone gets married and you're there, do you explain to the Chatan Kal and the family all the different honors at the chuppah? You know, there's the reading of the Ksuva, there's the 7 brachot, and how do you decide who gets what? You make a list in advance?
Well, we ask on both sides, the Chatan side and the Kala sides.
Right, so sometimes you can give relatives, yes. But if there are Rabbonim there, do you give the rabbis there kibudim?
Yeah.
Okay? Many times not. I've been to many weddings where there's 3 or 4 Rabbonim, you know, Ashkenazi Rabbonim, whatever it is, they don't even get mentioned, they don't even get noticed, even though the Chatan learned in their yeshivas. And they call up people who they don't even know. Who's next? I don't know. You go up. You know, they don't, you know, and these Rabbonim they're sitting there bewildered. You know, the lack of organization. So these are things that we need to work on to make sure that people understand that there are important things to prepare for. Okay. Zochor is Yom HaShabbos HaKadshu. Now I told you this last week that I'm going through the Sefer HaChinuch. The Sefer HaChinuch is a fascinating book. It's a list of all the mitzvahs in the Torah. And they're not sure who wrote the Sefer HaChinuch. They think it was the Reim. The Chidah says it's not because there's some contradictions between other opinions of the Reim. But it's anonymous. And it goes through every single mitzvah of the Torah. And I'm going through with the Art Scroll. And the Art Scroll did a magnificent work. Art Scroll does magnificent work in general. On the Sefer HaChinuch, those people who worked on this book, and I'm just going through volume 1, there's like 7 or 8 volumes already, did a magnificent job. It's a beautiful read, clear, concise, full of information. And it's a great review of all the mitzvahs of the Torah. So it says, Zochos Yom HaShabbos HaKadshu. Remember the Shabbos day to keep it holy, to make it kadosh. That's in this week's parsha. You know what they learn out from that pasuk? That when you start Shabbos at the Seudah, what's the first thing you make is Kiddush. Kiddush, Friday night, is from the Torah. It's a mitzvah from the Torah. Therefore, the cup you use to make Kiddush has to be a larger cup. 3.3 ounces, some people say 4.2 ounces, some people say over 5 ounces. That means Friday night Kiddush is from the Torah. Shabbos Kiddush, Shabbos day Kiddush, is midrabanan. And that's why people use a small little glass and fill it up with whiskey and make Kiddush over whiskey. You would never do that Friday night. Friday night you get a proper cup, you know, a silver cup, and you make it proper over wine. Shabbos we do the same, but not everybody does that. Okay, Kiddush comes in 2 parts. The first part is Vayechulu Hashamayim, where you talk about how Hashem finished creating the world. In 6 days he created the world. On the 7th day he rested. And then you have the Kiddush, Borei Pri HaGofen, and you talk about Yetzias Mitzrayim. Because in the 10 Commandments, the first one talks about creation of the world, and the second one talks about Yetzias Mitzrayim. When you make Kiddush, do you stand or sit?
Stand.
You stand for the entire Kiddush?
Yeah. Friday night we stand, and Shabbat day we sit.
Friday night you stand, Shabbos day you sit. Got it.
Yeah.
When you drink Friday night, after you make Kiddush, now you're going to drink. Are you standing when you drink, or do you sit?
Sitting.
You sit. Okay. So my father, when he made Kiddush, he stood for the entire Kiddush, and he even drank standing. Many people do that, because this way they went straight from Kiddush to the Tilat Yadayim. Yekis, German Jews, they would wash the Tilat Yadayim first. Then they come to the table, they make Kiddush, drink the wine, sit down, and make the Motzi right away.
Really?
Yeah, that's what Yekis do.
It's also right?
That's their custom.
Custom.
So I've been to homes.
As according to the Bishama?
I'm not sure. This is their minhag, where I've been to their homes, and they said to me, I know this can be unusual for you, but we first wash the Tilat Yadayim, and then we're going to make Kiddush, and we're going to say Amen, it's not a half-sek, and then you're going to drink the wine, and then we're going to sit down, and I'm going to make the Hamotzi. You know, so they do, that's the Yeki way.
They say Barakah al Natal Yadayim when they wash? Or?
Yes, definitely. Many yeshivas stand only for Vayechulu. After Vayechulu, they sit down. and they do the whole Kiddush sitting down, because it's Kiddush b'mokum su'udah, and you're supposed to eat your meal sitting down, the same way you do it Shabbos morning, sitting down, they do that Friday night. But they stand for Vayechulu. Why do they stand for Vayechulu? Because Vayechulu is considered giving what? Testimony. Edus. Okay? So now, the Chidah writes a fascinating thing. He says, before you make Kiddush Friday night, and you're about to say Vayechulu, which is testimony, since you're going to be a witness, do Teshuvah. He says, you take a moment and you say to Hashem, please forgive me for all my sins. When a person performs a wedding, and you call up two people to be the witnesses, there's a few things we do today. Number one, we tell the Chatan, appoint these two people to be your witness. Why? Because besides them, there are many relatives who are around. And if everybody sees something, they all become witnesses. And since the relatives are going to join the non-relatives, everybody becomes puzzled. Nobody's good for a witness. So you have to say you are the only two witnesses. Everybody else are not witnesses. Then the Masada Kedushin is supposed to say to the two witnesses, take a moment, since you're going to be witnesses to the act of marriage, do teshuvah for any sins that you may have done.
Even groom and bride.
What?
Even groom and bride also do teshuvah.
Right, but remember, we take it a step further. The bride and groom fast on the day of their wedding, and they daven the mincha of Yom Kippur. Okay? Even though the Gemara says that Hashem's gift to a chatan kala is, he forgives all their avedot. So they should start life fresh, new. And they learned that from Esav, because Esav married Mochalat, the daughter of Yishmael. Okay, so now comes the Chidah, you do Teshuvah, and you make Kiddush. Friday night in Shul, when you daven Ma'ariv, and you say Vayechulu, everybody says it together. What happens if you daven Shemona Esrei longer, and you finish after everybody finishes? What do you normally do?
You should wait and say it with somebody else.
You wait and say it with somebody else, because you can't say testimony by yourself. You've got to have two people. The Mishnah Brewer writes that even though it's nice to daven a long Shemona Esrei, but on Friday night, cut it short. Finish with everybody. Okay. Of course, it raises a problem. You come to your house. Now you're making Kiddush Friday night at your table. Who are the two witnesses? They're all related. They're all your children. And what happens if a woman says Kiddush and she has no husband, her husband passed away?
Candles.
Right?
Candles.
Candles are not witnesses, they can't testify. Does the woman say Vayechulu? Yes, but women are not kosher for witnesses. So it raises a question how really witnesses they are. But the Chassam Sofer had a different question. Chassam Sofer's question was, how can you be a witness? You can only be a witness on things you saw. Did you see creation of the world? I don't think so. Did you see Yetziat Mitzrayim? I'm not sure if you did. Right? You can't say, I'm a witness in court, and the judge says, how do you know this, sir? Well, everybody said it. That doesn't work that way. You can't testify what everybody says. You can only testify by what you saw, what you know firsthand. So how do we say Vayechulu, which means Hashem created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th day? We were not there. So the Chassam Sofer says that at Har Sinai, every neshama was there. So we were there. Our neshama was there. This is a testimony of our neshama. Our neshama is saying, we were at Har Sinai. We heard Hashem say that He created the world. We saw all the Jews that left Mitzrayim. And Hashem says, I took you out of Mitzrayim. So we heard Hashem tell us. That's what we're testifying to. We heard from Hashem that He created the world and took the Jews out of Mitzrayim. So it's a fascinating thing. You know, what you assume is so simple, the Kiddush, is not such a simple thing. Okay, let's go a little bit further. Yisro. Yisro's name, some people called him Yeser. Yeser means there was an entire section of the Torah added in his honor. What was added? The whole section of Judges. Yisro saw Moshe sitting from morning until night, and all the Jews were lined up all around the corner to ask Moshe questions. Yisro says to Moshe, not a good idea. You're going to get exhausted. They're going to get exhausted. Now, that wasn't something special. Because to criticize, anybody can criticize. Anybody can look at a situation and say, that's no good. Ask the rabbi here. On a Shabbos morning after shul, 10 people can come over and say, I would have done this differently, this is no good, that's no good. Criticize, easy. What made Yisro great? Sarah, do you know what made Yisro extra special? After he criticized, he came up with a solution.
Yeah.
That's different. That means you can say to Mom, this soup tastes terrible. Okay, got it. But if you then say, but if we add a little this and we do this, I bet you we can make it taste really good. That's a different story. Now you're just not a critical. You're not just criticizing. You're coming up with solutions. In general, Sarah, do you come up with criticism or solutions, or both?
Solution.
Both. Good. That makes you like Yisro. It's not enough simply to criticize. Yisro came up with suggestions, solutions. But it comes with a very interesting question. What were all these Jewish people fighting about? That means Yisro sees Moshe sitting, and there's a line going all the way around the block. Everybody has something to ask Moshe. Everybody's having a machloket of some kind. You have been slaves for your whole life in Mitzrayim. What could you possibly be arguing about? What were you coming to a din Torah about? What was the argument about? The answer is a fascinating answer. There's 4 answers. Listen to the first answer. I'm Friday night walking home from shul, and I look into Rachamim's house. And you know what I see on his Shabbos table? 2 beautiful candlesticks. So I say to him, where'd you get those candlesticks? So he tells me the Egyptian taskmaster, Ahmed, Hashem said, borrow from your neighbor. I went to his house and he had these candlesticks. And I said, could I have him? He said, here, have him. I said, that's very nice of Ahmed to give it to you. But those candlesticks belong to my grandmother. And Ahmed took it from me. So those candlesticks are stolen items. I want them back. They're mine. You're saying, I don't know if they're yours. Ahmed took them. I got it from him. I'm following what the Torah says. You know, all of a sudden, everybody was seeing, you have my challah knife, you have my kiddush cup, you have my menorah, you have my esrog box. Everybody was saying, you have my jewelry, you have my paintings, you have my silverware. So they were all coming to Moshe. Moshe, who gets the candlesticks? They were mine. They were my great-grandmother's candlesticks. You know, I have this very often in divorce cases. If a couple gets divorced in the first year of marriage, what happens to all the presents, all the gifts? 2 people get married. They get all these presents from all the family members. Furniture, clothing, candlesticks, jewelry. So the rule is, in the first year, things go back. So I gave you jewelry, give it back to me. You gave me a watch, I give it back to you. Not everything can go back, but whatever we can give back goes back. What happens to somebody, I have a case, somebody was married 20 years. The man says, I want the ring back, the diamond ring. The girl says, I'm sorry, the diamond ring is mine. You gave it to me as a gift. We've been married 20 years. It belongs to me. The guy says, yeah, but that's not my diamond ring. It was my grandmother's. Had I gone to the store and bought the diamond ring, okay, it's yours. I gave you a gift. But I didn't buy that diamond ring. My grandmother gave it to me. It belonged in our family. It was her grandmother's and her grandmother's. It's been in our family for 400 years. My grandmother did not know we're going to get divorced. So I'm sorry, but that ring is just not a ring. I didn't buy it at Kay's Jewelers. It is an heirloom. It belongs to the family, my family. I want it back. Now it's not so simple anymore. The truth is, she doesn't have to give it back. Now, if he wants to buy it back from her, and she accepts, that's fine. But when you give a gift, you give a gift. So you got to be careful. Just because you have something from your grandmother and it means something to you, don't give it as a gift unless you're prepared that it should stay as a gift. So these people all came to Moshe arguing, those are my candlesticks. That was one group. Listen to the next argument. Very fascinating. This is the Yam Suf. Ready? The first people in the front jumped in. They risked their lives. Nachshon ben Aminadab, that whole group. They're crossing, the water's getting up to their neck, and then there's a miracle and the water splits. Okay? They were the heroes. Now they crossed to the other side. What happened when they got to the other side? They kept going on, right? Because the rest of the Jews were behind them. So it comes out that the first people into the Yam Suf afterwards were all the way over here.
You didn't get nothing.
And they didn't get anything from all the gold and silver that floated to the top. When the Egyptians were being tossed and turned, all the jewels and the diamonds and the rubies that were on the chariots came floating to the top. The last ones in were at this side. They grabbed it all. So the guys who says, we were the heroes, we were the ones who jumped in, we showed all the emunah bitachon in Hashem, and what do we get? Nothing. There was nothing left. We want Moshe to gather everything together and divide it equally. Equitable distribution. These people said possession is 9/10 of the law. What we got, we got. You should have taken it out of Egypt. Okay? Can you imagine what kind of machlokas there was? Now, they came to Moshe because Moshe was the best person to go to. See, because Moshe took nothing. See, everybody took something. So everybody had what we call negiyut. Everybody had biases. They had to find somebody who took nothing out of Egypt, nothing at the Yam. Moshe. The only thing he took was the coffin of Yosef. And you know what? Nobody wanted the coffin. Could you imagine that? Nobody wants the dead bodies. They want gold and silver. They fight, they'll kill for gold and silver. Well, nobody fought Moshe to say, we want Yosef. Moshe kept Yosef by him. No one fights to go to a funeral. No one is upset at a funeral that they didn't call them up to get an honor. You know, the people in the front had to tear their clothes. No one called me up to tear my clothes. No one argues about that. But at a wedding, families get destroyed over that. You know? Do you read every week the Jewish papers, they print the misasking list of who's sitting Shiva. Do you ever read the list? I just want to make sure my name's not on it. I just double check, that's all. But, it's I'm so happy. My name, Baruch Hashem, is not on. I'm very happy. But nobody reads it. Nobody goes to read that. That was the second thing. The third thing was they fought about shidduchim. They just got the Torah. They were just given a list who they can marry, who they cannot marry. Well, half of them were married to people they weren't allowed to be married to. What happens now?
Sisters,
what happens to our children? All these different things. So they were lining up with Moshe. What do we do now? Who can we marry? Who can we not marry? I'm from Shevet Yehuda. Can I marry someone from Shevet Shimon? I'm dating this girl from Shevet Shimon. Can I marry her? Can I not marry her? Before B'no Salocha. There were a lot of questions about shidduchim. That was really driving them crazy.
Everything new laws.
New laws. It was very complicated. They were lined up for miles asking Moshe questions. The fourth group was very fascinating. It had to do with Baba Basra. What's Baba Basra about? Neighbors. What's considered a good neighbor? And you know what they said was? They came to the desert. In Egypt, they all had their lands and they were spread out all over the place. Now, we live in the desert. My tent is right next to his tent. Well, do you know what happens at 3 o'clock in the morning? He snores so loud, I can't sleep. So he's taking away my sleep. And this guy throws a party, and he's fighting with his wife, and the baby's crying over here. All of a sudden, they're living right next to each other, all these different tents, and they have no way of resolving what's called a good neighbor. To be a shachen tov. Have you ever, when you move to Israel, you live in one of these apartment buildings, it's different. We were in a hotel. So we decided to eat lunch in the room instead of going, whatever it is, which was fine. My wife says, it would be nice to have some Zemirot. All of a sudden, in the room next to us, they're singing Zemirot. And then this baby's crying in the middle of the hallway. All of a sudden, you're in your hotel, and you realize, whoa, I want to go to sleep, but this baby's crying. Try to go on a plane when you have screaming babies. It's crazy, right? You go over and say, could you go outside and play maybe? Of course, it's 40,000 miles up in the air. You can't really go outside. They had laws of shochen tov. What are the rules? And if you damage me, as a neighbor, what are the obligations? What are the responsibilities? So they had a lot of din Torahs. Moshe was a very busy man. It was not just Moshe, it was Moshe, Aaron, the Zakanim, and eventually they set up the 78,000 judges they appointed overnight. That's a lot of judges, 78,000. And they were busy, they were quite busy. So it's just very interesting to see how all these things were working out. He brings down, in the Aseret Adibros, when you read it in shul, the notes are different than when you read it privately. Okay. Mickey just walked by. It's okay.
It's okay.
The only problem with Mickey Mouse is that very often they're not orphans. They come with big families. That's the problem. Mice are never orphans, You wish they were orphans. Okay. Sarah, for you, that's what it is. She has her feet up? Okay. Look at when you read the Aseret Adibros, it's very interesting. Lo has like a comma this way, like a pause. Lo, stop, no. Then it says tirtzach, murder. Then it says lo, stop, tinov, have bad relationships. Lo, no, stop, tinov, go steal. Lo, no, be a false witness. So the Zohar asks, it's like when a person says to you, sorry to see you, and they stop, and then they say the word go. So what if I say sorry to see you go, it means I'm sorry that you're leaving. But if I say sorry to see you, when I stop, go means I'm happy you're leaving. It has the total opposite effect. So the Zohar writes, and the Vilna Gaon brings this down, that you're not allowed to murder. But there are times when murder is allowed. For example, in war, or when they conquered Eretz Yisrael, or when someone commits a capital crime. Stealing is wrong, but a Beis Din can take away your money. Hefker, Beis Din, Hefker. They can give you fines. Illicit relationships are wrong, but if the husband dies and the wife has no children, you have something called Yibum and Chalitza. So it's trying to tell you, the way the notes are written is to tell you that what is wrong, there are sometimes exceptions that the Beis Din can do and the Chachamim can do in order to allow something to happen. So it's very, very interesting how they bring certain things down that they're able to do it. Just some general things, it's already almost 9:30. In the Aseret Adibros, there are 620 words. 613 mitzvos plus 7 mitzvos midrabanan is 620. Okay? Turnus Rufus.
620 letters.
Letters.
In Aseret Adibros too.
It says here, the Aseret Adibros have 620 words.
620 words?
Words. Much more letters than words.
No, words.
Words.
Wait,
She's like a lot of words, but maybe not.
Not letters, words?
I have words in it. Maybe it is letters.
The other letters.
620 words of
Must be 620 letters, yeah.
In what?
In the Aseret Adibros are 620 letters. That's what
Letters
I'm
can't
saying.
be words.
Turnus Rufus asked Rabbi Akiva, how come in the first 5 commandments it says Hashem's name a lot of times? In the last 5, it doesn't say Hashem's name once. So Rabbi Akiva said to Turnus Rufus, give me a tour of your palace. And he shows him this room, and he has a beautiful shield. In this room, he has a beautiful spear. He says, show me the bathroom. In the bathroom, there's no spears, no emblems. He says, how come we don't have anything in the bathroom? He says, well, the bathroom is a horrible place. I'm not going to put my spears and my shields and my stuff there. He says, well, the first 5 commandments talk about the love of Hashem, don't worship idols, Shabbos. Hashem's name is there. The last 5 talks about don't murder, don't steal. These are things Hashem doesn't want to know. Hashem doesn't want to be part of. He says Hashem does not put his name by murderers and stealers and robbers and all these other things. So Turnus Rufus was accepted Rabbi Akiva's explanation as to why the first 5 have Hashem's name and the second 5 don't.
Old Masechet is Midrash or Masechet says?
With Turnus Rufus?
Yes, Turnus Rufus.
I'll tell you where it is because I photocopied it, I think. It is a medrash. The Chizkuni brings down the following medrash. Chizkuni is one of the Balei HaTosos. And he says, Shaul Turnus Rufus or Rosh Rabbi Akiva. And he has a whole medrash on it. Have a good night, everybody. We never got to Parshas Bo, what I want to tell you from Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. So maybe in one of the weeks to come, I'll tell you what Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky said about the second Beis HaMikdash. We never got into that yet. To be continued. Sarah, there's a friend of yours in that